Hi everyone, you're listening to Achieve Balance with Dr. Arminta, a show brought to you to help you be healthier, happier, and more vitalistic next year than you are this year. You can find us at achievebalancechiropractic.com/podcast. And you can find us on Facebook as well. We are looking forward to helping you be healthier in your future. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the show. Hey guys, it's Dr. Arminta again. Welcome back to Achieve Balance podcast. And I have with me today my favorite farmer. I have David Boatright from Fed from the Farm. This is who my family gets all of our meat product, egg products from. And the process of what David does is very, very unique. And it is very important in terms of your overall health, the quality of the food, the health of the animal, the health of the land. And so we're going to go into some detail about that today and teach you how to get back to basics when it comes to farming and start giving you access to local, sustainable, healthy food resources. And so welcome today, David. I'm so happy to have you.
Thanks, Dr. Arminta. I am really thrilled to be here today with you.
Yay. Well, tell us what is different from Fed from the Farm? So where should we start on all of that? Because the whole process is very unique.
It is. So what's different? Well, our mission statement is to restore the health and vitality of the land and to nourish the families who eat of its bounty. So that's the guiding principle behind our farm. So everything we do, we want from a regenerative and sustainable agriculture standpoint. We want each of our farm practices, the animals we raise and the methods we raise them, to be moving us forward from an ecological standpoint. At the same time, we want to ensure that the products, that the bounty, if you will, of our farm that we're producing is packed full of nutrients to really kind of springboard the families that are eating from it. Not that it's everything, but that it can really help move them forward as far as trying to eat healthy, as far as trying to just reach their full potential. So we try to look at both things and make our management so that we can ensure we're always moving forward from a land health perspective, and then also that we're increasingly moving forward on a human health perspective and the nutrient density of our food and the importance of that. So I think that's it. Kind of maybe sets us apart somewhat that we have that dual focus in what we're doing.
I think that's incredible, and the product that comes out of it is substantial. Just speaking from full experience. Let's talk about traditional agricultural methods and what most people think that their food is coming from and why it is not nutrient dense, and how you move your crops and change how you feed your animals to be able to ensure nutrient density, and how that feeds back into the soil as well.
So you're looking for a really short answer, I'm sure, there with that the line.
Well, I mean, we can go really as in depth as you want, because this is all about teaching people all about why I feel like they need to know why it is important to eat we need to reverse how we farm and go back to some old traditional ways of farming, because the mass agricultural aspect is not sustainable for the long haul, and we are running really short on resources when it comes to that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. So I grew up on a conventional farm, so my background in agriculture was status quo. And so I have kind of a unique perspective on that too. I think we've come full circle. But I think the problem with agriculture today and the systems that we have is, first off, it is a mechanical system. It is not a biological system. We've tried to fit a very complex ecological system, our planet and world, and the way we interact with it, into this factory, like widget in, widget out. And it doesn't work at all like that. The consequence has been that what we've done here in the United States is we came into an abundant natural resource base that had an incredibly vital, alive soil, feet of it in most cases. And we interposed our methods on top of that and very rapidly depleted the soil base. So because our system today is really heavy on tillage, on pesticides and fertilizers and chemicals, we've completely sterilized the soil. All the natural biological activity in there is killed, wiped out by the agrochemicals we use and the fertilizers. At the same time, the focus on tillage, monoculture crops, is eroding our soil at horrendous rates. So parts of the United States that we have developed at the beginning. So the East Coast, for instance, there's places in Virginia and other places that are down like 20 feet worth of soil. That they have old fences and roads that are now like mountains almost, where you can look up and be like, oh, what's that hill? Well, that's where a road was, and we plowed next to it for the last 100 years. And that's how much soil we've lost. There's plenty of places in Iowa where old historical church buildings and other historical buildings that they didn't want to tear down over time sit 10 feet above the surrounding area because the soil has eroded everywhere they plowed and tilled into conventional agriculture, and those buildings, of course, weren't subject to the plow, so they're now 10 or 15 feet above the surrounding area. I mean, that's astounding and really chilling.
So what's really interesting about this, and so I want to piggyback on this, because I was at a conference in January, and one of the, Zach Bush, who is an integrative med doctor who is very into talking about gut health, talked about genetically modified organisms and how it's getting into the soil depletion, and with the erosion of the soil and the Mississippi River, they're seeing staggering amounts of cancer in a 100-mile radius at the very lower part of, in Louisiana, they call it Cancer Row. And they're getting an association through the runoff down the Mississippi into the Delta from the genetically modified food that's happening from the Midwest.
Yeah.
And that's detrimental to the ecosystem of our gut and the ecosystem of our world, to a point that is scary. So we need to have a different practice. There has to be a different way to do this to be able to sustain the population in the same fact and sustain the land at the same time.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. GMOs and our cropping method is completely unsustainable. A GMO corn plant, if you plant it in a healthy soil, the soil does not recognize that corn plant as a plant. If you plant a normal corn plant in that same soil, it will have millions of biological reactions with the life forms in that soil. If you put that GM corn plant in the ground, the soil does not recognize it as a plant. Animals do not recognize it as food. If you give them a choice, they will eat the one that is not.
Absolutely.
They can taste the difference. They know the difference. But today, I mean, most of what we eat, unless we are really careful about it, unless we really take the time to seek out a better source, is going to be GMOs.
Oh.
Over 95% of the crops planted in the United States of anything is GMOs. And so corn syrup, anything with a corn base to it, anything with a syrup base in it, most sugars, almost anything you can think of has GMOs in it. And that cumulative effect on our bodies, on our guts, or downstream is staggering.
So we have not even seen the health crisis yet. No. We have not. And mark my word, in 10 to 15 years, we will start to see a crisis when it comes to our overall health of our children where it's going to be at. No, because exactly right. Every one of the formula, if you're not a breastfed child and you do formula, the very first ingredient in all standard formulas across the board is corn syrup solids, which are made of genetically modified corn, which is going to stimulate the gut, which is also going to increase all the sugar content in the system. It's very, very, very bad news.
Yeah, there it is. It's chilling, really. And the argument is, well, we've had this and it hasn't killed us yet. That's a terrible argument for one. Second of all, GMO crops and the predominance to our food system is a pretty new advent. We're talking 15 years.
94, right? It's something like that.
94, They got legalized. It took about 6 years for it to really spread. And then, even then, it took a while for the chemical manufacturer of food ingredients to be like, oh, we can use corn syrup for everything.
Right.
So it took a while for it to really filter its way into each and every food product that most people consume on a daily basis.
And they're doing that because they have so much byproduct from these corn crops.
That's
and then not only that, they're feeding the corn crops to our cattle, our chicken, our pork, and any kind of mass-produced meat product in the United States is fed genetically modified corn, which is another reason, getting back to the practice of what you do, is so very much different, because you have a grass-fed from start to finish farm on everybody's fort. So your chickens are out there grazing. So tell me about how you replenish the land, and how, because I mean that took some time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's probably still in the process too.
It is. It's not something that's ever done, and I think that's the most exciting part. Is it just keeps getting better. We have for our planet an incredibly complex biological system. If we work with nature instead of fighting it, the cumulative effect is staggering. So, well, the first thing we learned is our soil is alive, and we need to care for it, because that is the foundation for health for the forage, the grasses, the plants that we grow. That then is the foundation of health for the animals that we raise, and the foundation of health for the families that eat from their bounty. So, how do you start at the soil level? Well, we started with a soil that was incredibly depleted. I mean, that is a starting ground for nearly anywhere in the United States at this point. So the first thing we had to do was bring animals back to it. Animals and soil and plants have a symbiotic relationship. The plants in the soil need the presence of the animals, just like the animals need the presence of the soil. In today's agriculture, we pulled the animals away. We raise crops, and we put animals in barns without windows and feed them what the crops have. We completely undermined how the system works. So we bring the animals back to the land, but next we have to manage them with the land and the forage. So if all we do is just leave them on there all the time, the same spot, we're going to get a golf green. Call it golf green grazing. I'm sure everyone has seen it. You've driven by a field and you can see, down to the very bottom of a cow's hoof, there's nothing growing out there. It looks like a golf green. What you really need in that system is solar conversion. We are managing a solar panel on our farm. The only renewable resource we really have is sunlight. It's free. It comes down every day. We can harvest it with a grass plant. If that grass plant is between 8 inches and a foot tall, it is an effective solar panel. If the grass gets much taller than that and browns out, like maybe you've seen a big overgrown field driving through the country somewhere, that's an ineffective solar panel. A golf green grazing system is an ineffective solar panel. Both of those are moving soil health backwards. So what we do with our livestock is mimic the activity of the grazing herds in North America before we settled it. Those herds rotated across the entire landscape. They left and they came back. They left and they came back, moving in a cyclical cycle that allowed the plants, they would restart the plants by biting them off so they kept them from getting too tall, but then they would leave so that they could grow up again. So that's what we're mimicking on our farm. Our goal is to have the most efficient solar panel we can. So we have our cows and our sheep in a pasture. We have hundreds of these pastures on our farm that we create with modern movable fencing. So they're on it for a day and then they move. They're on it for a day and then they move. So they rotate across the whole landscape, and you have this disturbance that resets the grass, that resets the soil. They fertilize it. They knock a lot of the grass down because we manage our animals rather uniquely, really tight. We keep them in a tight, compact herd, and the grass is quite tall. So they knock a lot of that grass down on the soil surface. That also rapidly speeds the soil health improvement. Just like you would mulch a flower bed or a garden. If our soil is bare, the sun dries it out. It kills off the microbes several inches deep. It depletes it of rainwater, and it hardens it, just like a clay pan, so the new seeds can't germinate. When we put our dense herd of cattle or sheep on our landscape, in that small area, they eat the very best of the grass. That's again to the nutrient density of those animals. We want them just to get the very best. They trample the rest on the soil surface, so we just mulch the whole thing. Their heavy hooves chip up the ground so that new seedlings can establish, the rainwater can dip in, and that mulch on top of the ground then is incorporated into the soil by biological activity, and we're building the organic matter of our soil. And the organic matter is the key to soil health. It holds those nutrients for the grass, it holds rainwater and nutrients for the soil. It's that buffer. In the United States, prior to conventional agriculture, we had organic matter levels between 8 and 15%, depending on where you were in the United States. Today, the average organic matter content of a field in the state of Missouri for a crop field is 0.5%.
Oh, I saw.
For grazing land, it's 1%. We've destroyed it on both fronts. So what we've kind of done with our agricultural system is say, okay, let's look to the past and the things that work there, but also using the modern technology and an understanding that's really pretty recent, about the last 30 years, of how our biological systems work. Can we combine those two to mimic what worked in the past and to accelerate that? because we don't have 1,000 years to let bison roam, across our landscape. That's not a sustainable system at this point. We have to be able to mimic that and speed it up if we are going to really undo the damage that we've done. So that's what we're trying to do on our farm, and we've seen terrific results. So we grow about 3 times as much grass now as what we did when we started, and without fertilizing. That is simply using a biological system with our cows, with our sheep, and now with our chickens as well. So in nature, birds followed grazing herbivores. Always. Flocks of birds would follow the bison across the prairies. Why? Because there's bugs. Wherever those cows are in a really tight area, that brings insects, that disturbance. So we run our chickens behind our cattle. Everything is portable. A key to animal health is they have to be moving. If anything stays in the same spot for too long, there will be disease. Because animals do not grasp the concept of indoor plumbing. Mm-hmm. So they have to rotate. So the same thing. The problem with so much of today's agriculture is we try to keep the animals in the same spot, mostly without sunlight, which really helps keeping things healthy as well. And it just builds disease. It causes an enormous number of issues in the animals in that they weren't designed to live like that. And our solution for modern agriculture has been, okay, just pump them full of antibiotics and growth hormones and just keep them barely alive. Just barely alive. And our system instead is to say, okay, how is this animal designed to eat? A cow is designed to eat grass. It's one of the few animals in the world that can consume grass, which is mostly cellulose, and convert it into protein. All it needs is that. It doesn't need anything else. That is its unfair advantage. That is its ecological niche. And instead, in our modern agriculture, we've said, oh, well, we could feed it grain because then it'll grow faster. Well, it grows faster, but with wretched consequences for the animal. It causes acidosis in its guts, which means the lining of the guts start to eat. Especially in the stomachs, it starts to deteriorate and eat. So it's like terrible ulcers, if you can imagine, just living your life with wretched ulcers. Most of the beef animals that are processed in the United States that go on your dinner plate, their livers are condemned at the processor, which basically means that they were suffering from liver failure at the end. Their diet of GMO corn in a feedlot is destroying their digestive system, and it is causing liver failure. They're processed at around 18 to 24 months of age because they can't live beyond 18 to 24 months of age without antibiotics.
And mass antibiotics, but then
an enormous amount of antibiotics. That kind of barely keeps it in check. They just have to survive until that point. That's not a healthy animal, and what you're then putting into your body is basically the building blocks of what nearly caused that animal's death. So, I mean, that is not a good starting point for your own health as far as trying to nourish yourself. And again, we are what we eat. Those animals, as far as the nutrients that they have in their meat that they give off, is going to reflect what they ate. If all they were fed is GMO corn and GMO soybeans, your steak, your ground beef, has the nutrient profile of GMO corn and soybeans. Right. That is not a good place to be. No. Not a good place to be at all, because you will remember that diet of GMO corn and soybeans was causing the beef animal to die a premature death. Right. So, on our system, it's all grass. The cows were designed to eat grass. We want it to be nutrient-rich grass. We want it to be the very tips, the best part of it, and so that they can thrive, so that they can gain weight, so that they can put down fat. And that natural fat that's not accelerated by the feeding of grains is so packed with the nutrients from our diverse sorts of forage and grass that is like a buffer for the animal that it can draw on and just ensure that it has every element of it is healthy. So, and as conversed with a conventional beef animal that's liver is condemned at the slaughter yard as unfit for human consumption, the livers from our beef animals are fantastic. Instead of being toxic, they are a bastion of nutrient density. So that I think that best highlights that difference in what we're doing.
And that's some of the where most packed nutrient meat in an animal is that organ meat that you can get. And that's why it's so vital if it's a healthy animal.
Yeah, if it's a healthy animal. Yeah, if it's an unhealthy animal, I cannot fathom.
No, how sick you would get.
You would get sick.
How sick you would get immediately. There'd be no doubt about it. Absolutely. And so, how many acres do you guys have out there?
So we take care of. We're stewards of about 600 acres right now. That
nice.
We take care of. Rotating the animals all across that landscape. So
nice.
Yeah.
And so you have cattle.
Yep.
We have lamb.
Yep.
We have chickens.
Yes.
And then from that, one of the other things that is really unique about David's business and what he does is that usually if you're going to get a grass-fed cow in mid-Missouri, you usually have to go in and buy full cow, half cow, quarter cow, and split it with somebody, and you get what you get out of it. David, you can get online and you can order 2 pounds of ground beef, and you can get 2 pounds of ground beef. You can order bones for making your own bone broth. It's so simplistic. He even makes it to where you can get, he started this home delivery thing, which is fantastic. And so, or he has drop-off points in lots of different areas. So tell us about your business and how it's grown and what your favorite parts about that are. And then let's talk about how people can get a hold of you, like farmers markets and things along those lines too.
Absolutely, that's a great question. So my favorite part about it, that I think that's what I'll answer first, the easy one. It's the people. It's meeting the families and the people who a lot of times are at a point in their lives where they're like, we need to make a change. This is part of it. Seeing their stories, hearing their concerns, answering their questions. And I think that speaks to me so much because my wife and I have been there. So I mentioned that we grew up on a conventional farm. And what started this journey was we kind of got disenchanted with conventional agriculture. We started looking at a land health perspective, and we wanted to mimic that biological cycle with the grazing animals. So we got into that, but we were disconnected from the nutrient density of our food. I knew it was essential that the cows have a diet of grass and that we could really build soil health by doing what we call rotational grazing. But it never clicked in my mind that the cows eating that grass and their health and flourish in the way they flourished, that it would matter what my wife and I ate. So while we were doing this grazing system and healing the land, we're still eating junk food. We're still going to Walmart and buying chicken and conventional beef and all that, and there was this terrible disconnect in our minds, and we didn't get it. And then my wife had some pretty serious health issues. We were told that we probably wouldn't be able to have children. That was going to be incredibly difficult, and that was hard for both of us. We both dreamed of having a large family, and that really hit us. And so it was kind of at that pivotal moment where we were like, okay, we're looking at options. They gave us just all kinds of drugs and all this stuff that we're going to take and do, and it really did not seem like a good option for us. So we started looking, and what we discovered at that time as we were doing our research and our homework, and probably in large part because we were already so associated with the regenerative ag side, is the nutrient density of food. And so long before we were ever raising it to eat ourselves, we started buying it from other producers, from other grass-fed people and their farms, and kind of learning how that system worked. And largely the decision to then do it ourselves was twofold. One, we were already farming that way, so we're like, as far as the pasture raised side, we just weren't finishing anything. We weren't taking any of that product and making it available to us or anyone else. So we're like, man, that would be so rewarding to do that. And then second of all, it was born from, I want to say issues, but frustrations we had in that search as we were buying it from other producers. Like you mentioned, it wasn't always convenient if you had to put down the money to buy a half or a quarter of a cow. Sure, there's money savings, but we didn't have a deep freeze,
right.
or enough money to put all that down at once. So that was a problem. And then also there were some producers, not all, there were some really good ones that we met and some that we're still great friends with. But there were some that were shysters. They really were. They were green coding what they were doing. They were saying it was one way, and when you dug into the details, it was a completely different way. They wanted to rip you off on the price and what they were doing, but they didn't want to do anything different. It was conventional agriculture with a fancy label and a nice heartwarming story. Well, the heartwarming story was not going to fix my wife's health issues, and that really, really frustrated us. So after about a year of doing that massive dietary change, my wife's health issues corrected. We now have 2 children, one that just arrived 2 weeks ago. So we're thrilled with that. It's really been an incredible change. But a lot of what we do from a business side is addressing those frustrations. So we wanted it to be really convenient for people to get our nutrient-rich food products. Why? Because our goal is their health. It's not It's not this giant business scheme. We lived it. We lived both sides. That really struggling with health issues and seeing that there was a way out and getting that. So our mission is for that to get to the most people. So it needs to be convenient. So we've tried to make it that way. We have a website that highlights all of our products. We meet every month when we go to different pickup locations. They can order online and choose which one they want, the date, the time, and they come out and meet us. And we're in Columbia, we're in St. Louis, we're in Kansas City, and a few other places, several locations in those cities, so that people can come out, they can meet us, they can talk with us, they can get their food, and that's been super rewarding just to hear their stories and meet them. And again, on that convenience side, we started a home delivery option because sometimes people can't make it to those drops. We don't want them to then have to make a bad eating decision for their family. So again, we want it to be more convenient so that they can get that food. We wanted the online system so that they could order anytime. They can get on, when they have a chance, because life is busy and we understand that. But at the same time, we wanted that interaction with our customers. We wanted that open door policy on the farm so that they could go and really see what we were doing and verify and validate that what we said we were doing with what we are doing. So I think that's the most rewarding when we have people come out to the farm, or even just meeting them at these pickup locations and hearing their stories and being a part of their health transformation. That is so rewarding and really what just keeps us going. I mean, it's an enormous amount of work on a Saturday before the drops or on the home delivery days, but those are our most rewarding days. I mean, we are exhausted when we're done. We've been driving all day. We've been going. But we come home refreshed because of the people we got to meet and just that knowing that we were a part of that transformation for them and living that transformation for ourselves. That really just keeps us going, and that's the drive for us to help more people and to continue to grow what we're doing, if you will, is so that we can have a bigger impact for people's health.
I love that. More than I can say, because it just matches so much with the mission that we do. So fedfromthefarm.com and get their information, make orders, contact, ask questions. Their farm is located in Boonville, Missouri, and they welcome people to come out and check it out, get their hands dirty, strap on some boots, and really see where your food comes from. And I think that that's such a vital importance because we are what we eat. And if we don't do something different, our health crises are not going to change if we don't take active consideration into what we're doing in terms of our food, how we're moving, our stress levels, and all of those different things. Because just like with your wife's story, we hear stuff like this all the time because she addressed toxicity and deficiency, and she gave her body what her body needed, and then her body has the best doctor in it that ever existed, like in everybody else's bodies, and it fulfilled and healed what needed to be healed. Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful. It is so beautiful. Well, from our family to your family, you know how much we just love your products, your mission, and we want to be your biggest cheerleader because it's just so on point. So thank you so much for being on the show. We'll put all of his information in the show notes and attached to our website so that you can get a hold of him, and I'm sure that he'll be back talking about some other projects that he might be up to later. So have a beautiful day, and we will talk to you soon. Hi guys, Dr. Arminta here. Thank you so much for listening. I hope today's episode brought you information to help you eat better, move better, think better, and take care of the true root of your health issues. You can find us online at achievebalancechiropractic.com/podcasts, and you can find us on social media as well. We look forward to having you here the next episode, and we look forward to helping you create a healthier future tomorrow.